All righty. Good afternoon again. I think we've got a good number of folks on the line, so we will go ahead and get started. For those who just joined us, I'm Matthew Beatty. I'm the Senior Director of Communications at the Miami Foundation, and we are so excited that you have joined us as a host for our fourth My Miami Story Day of Conversations. This is a really important day of community reflection, and it's an opportunity for us to really explore who we are as a community, and more importantly, where we're going and what each of us can do to help us get there. So this presentation will just go through a bit of the tips and tricks and advice to make sure that we have a successful conversation and that everyone will be ready for October 15th. So with that, we'll go ahead and jump right in. All righty. So first, what is your Miami story? And the truth is that life in this community is so multifaceted because we've got people who are here from all over the world. And so everyone's Miami experience is different. And so the question then becomes, how do we get on the same page as a community? How do we understand what different residents are experiencing, and then how those experiences impact our lives here in Miami? And that's what My Miami Story conversations seek to extract. It's about understanding all of the nuances behind the data and information that reflect quality of life here, so that we really get a holistic view of what is happening in Greater Miami, and more importantly, again, where we want to take it. And so this is about adding your voice to this conversation. Again, we know that we have rising graduation rates, and we know that the sea level is rising, and we know that neighborhoods and demographics are evolving. So we know all of that data and information, but this is about understanding how all of those facets of this community impact the residents, and what are those human experiences that we're having as people who live in Miami, and then how can we learn more about this community by understanding those experiences. So these are conversations to spark change. And what we mean when we say that is that it's about more than just having a discussion. Yes, it's a place to link up with friends. Yes, it is a place to discuss issues that are of interest to you and your group, but it's also about taking action. And so we provide you with a bunch of different ways in which you can then build on what you talked about and spark an idea that you can actually do something with after the conversation. And we'll kind of walk through what that looks like. So first, starting with this year's theme. Now, this is the first time that we've had a theme for conversations, but we felt that 2020 is such a big year that we had to get this community talking about what we are setting as the agenda for Greater Miami in the following 12 to 18 or so months. And so think about the upcoming elections. Think about the census count. As I mentioned, evolving neighborhoods and demographics, the impacts of climate change. A lot of these issues will come to the forefront in 2020 as we go to the ballot box and as we complete the census questionnaire. These decisions and actions that we'll take will literally impact the next 10, 20, 30 years in this community. And so it's important that we understand what we care about as a way to set an agenda for this important milestone year. So the hope is that as we gather these conversations on October 15th, that you all as hosts will encourage people to think about who they want to see in elected office, to think about ensuring that how can they ensure that every single resident in Miami-Dade County is counted in the census, to ensure that as neighborhoods evolve and as we grapple with issues like climate gentrification, that we're not losing the authenticity of the places that many racial and ethnic groups have called home for so many decades here in Miami. There's a lot of change that we can anticipate in 2020, and there's a lot of decisions that we'll make that will influence that change. And the hope is that this day of conversations will be an opportunity for us to explore those issues and better understand them so that we can all be on the same page as one community. So let's delve into some of the details. So first, the event day will be Tuesday, October 15th, and My Miami Story conversations can occur at any time during that day. So you as a host are empowered to host a breakfast, a lunch, a dinner, a 3:05 cafecito break. It could be a happy hour. It could be after your afternoon yoga session. It can be any time throughout the day. You select the time that works best for you. We often get a lot of questions around about how many people should we include as a host in a conversation. We recommend folks invite 6 to 12 folks per table or per individual gathering. That gives enough people that you get a good diverse perspective and get some differing opinions, but it's also not too large that everyone doesn't get an opportunity to contribute to the discussion. So again, 6 to 12 people is usually a good target. And if you want to invite more than that, we absolutely encourage that. We just invite you to break that larger group into smaller groups and then have the discussion and invite folks to report back to the larger group at the end of the experience. In terms of how much time you should allot for a discussion, we usually recommend around an hour and a half or so. That gives enough time for people to really delve into issues they care about, share their stories, talk about what some potential solutions may be, and then it leaves enough time for wrap-up. So we'll talk about taking the survey afterward, and we'll talk about how you can encourage your group to make commitments to what they're going to do after the conversation. And those last 30 minutes allow plenty of time for that. So again, good target for conversation time, about an hour and a half or so, hour and 45 minutes, and then leave the last 15, 20, 30 minutes or so for wrap up, for taking the survey, and for discussing what next steps will be. On invitations, we often get a lot of questions around who to bring to the table. That group can be anyone. It could be friends, it can be colleagues, family. If you work for an organization, it could be volunteers for that organization. It could be donors. It could be individuals who you know within your network have never met, that you think it would be great if they connected and got together. So it really is up to you. We, on our website, mymiamistory.org, will upload a bunch of host resources, one of which will be a digital invitation that will kind of present the language that you need and the graphics that you need that you can utilize and personalize to send out to anyone who you would like to invite. And it makes it super easy and quick for you to do so. And of course, we'll talk about if you have any additional questions on or need help with thinking through who to invite. I'll provide some resources toward the end in terms of who you can reach out to get more assistance with that. All right. Actually, before I move to the toolkit and conversation guide, we also get a lot of questions around where to host your conversation. And that, again, can be anywhere, but we do suggest that it be somewhere where you can have an intimate discussion and be able to easily hear each other. So we've had folks host conversations in parks. We've had them host them in their homes, in the lunchroom at work. We've had them, again, hosted over lunches, over dinners. And so anywhere where you feel comfortable and relaxed and can have an open discussion about your experience living in Miami works just fine. Okay, now delving into the toolkit and conversation guide, we will send you in the weeks leading up to October 15th a little box that includes everything you need for your conversation, including a booklet that walks you through how to set up your conversation, how to guide folks through it, and then what to do afterwards. We'll also provide some resources to take the survey, which we'll talk about in a moment, and some other cool My Miami Story swag items, which we'll talk about in a moment as well. But the point is that you will have all the resources you need to host a successful gathering. One of the key components in your toolkit are what we call fact cards. And these are small data points from the Our Miami report, which is a report that we do every 2 years here at the Foundation that looks at 60 different data points across 8 different issues that are critical to quality of life in Miami-Dade County. So those issues range from education to the economy to environment and public space. They run the gamut. And their data points are just little factoids about life in Miami that could possibly get the conversation started. Like, for example, and for the issue of civic engagement, one of the fact cards says volunteer rates in Greater Miami are the lowest among major U.S. cities. For arts and culture, the fact card says Greater Miami has the highest percentage of foreign-born residents of any major U.S. city. So there's about 30 or so fact cards that you will receive. They'll be broken down by these issue categories, and you can feel free to use them however feels comfortable to you. You may put out just some facts related to a particular issue that you want folks to discuss. You may kind of look through them and sift through them at the beginning of the conversation and kind of select a handful of interrelated facts that you want to explore the intersections of those issues in your conversation. Again, it's completely up to you. We have seen a lot of hosts have a good amount of success by just distributing the cards on the table before the conversation and just having them out for folks as they're coming in to just kind of pick up and read and explore and think about. And you will find that often you won't even need to get the conversation started because folks will be so interested and compelled by what they're reading on these cards that they will immediately jump into discussion about them. One other major tip is that, these are meant to be fully open conversations, and that means there's no wrong answers. While a lot of the issues that we face as a community are multifaceted and heavy and significant, that does not mean that we should be at each other's throats when we're discussing them because we're so passionate and so interested in getting our point across because we feel so strongly about that issue. These forums are really about driving solutions and the idea that solutions can come from anywhere in this community. Any resident can have a solution to an issue as big and as multifaceted as transportation or sea level rise or climate impacts. Anyone can have an opinion that can eventually lead to a solution that could work. And so you as a host will be instrumental in inviting people to be open, to be welcoming, and overall to be solutions focused. On the subject of open conversations, we do have a number of hosts that will be hosting large gatherings on October 15th where anyone across the community can attend. And so we will, on mymiamistory.org in the next number of weeks, as those conversations are solidified and booked and all of the details are settled, we will be sharing an open conversations web link where members of the public can browse through these conversations based on where they live in the community and find a conversation to attend. If you yourself are hosting a larger gathering of folks, please reach out to us and share the details of your gathering with our planning team, and we're happy to add that conversation to our Open Conversations platform. That will, again, enable anyone across the community to find your conversation, see the details, and RSVP and sign up to attend. The last point on conversation planning I'll mention is our wonderful sponsorship with Florida Power and Light. They have come on board to support organizations that are hosting conversations in particular neighborhoods around Miami-Dade County. That list will be up on our website within the next couple of weeks as well, and it is essentially to provide support for those organizations to reimburse them for food related to their conversation. And so if you are an organization, a nonprofit organization, hosting a conversation on the 15th, just keep a lookout on mymiamistory.org for those details and feel free to apply there. And again, for any of these details, if you have additional questions, all of our contact information is available on our website, and I'll also provide it at the end of this presentation. As I mentioned in your toolkit, as a way of saying thank you to all of you wonderful hosts, we will be providing some gifts and goodies just for you. Chief of which will be your My Miami Story t-shirt. We'll also provide some cool wristbands and stickers and a lot of other goodies in there that will just make it more fun and a more engaging experience. Those toolkits are on a first-come, first-served basis. We usually will have about 400 or so available. And so if you have not signed up as an actual host on mymiamistory.org, please don't forget to do so to make sure that we have you in our system and to ensure that you get your toolkit. In terms of timing, those toolkits will usually arrive about a week to 2 weeks ahead of the conversation. However, if you sign up after that time frame, you can absolutely still participate on October 15th, and all of the toolkit elements will be available for download online, except for the swag and the wristbands. All of that, if you want that, sign up now to make sure that you get your toolkit. Okay, wrapping up your conversation. So as I said, these conversations are about encouraging people to explore the issues they care about so that they take action around them. One of the most important ways that we can drive action around this day is not only encouraging individuals to take action, but also understanding what was holistically discussed across the county, and from those discussions, what were the insights in terms of how people are experiencing these community issues, and most importantly, what are their recommendations for solving them? So therefore, with the generous support of the Knight Foundation, we have brought on a research partner that will allow us to provide a survey to every single person who participates in a conversation. This survey will take about 10 to 15 minutes to complete. It'll cover both what you talked about in your conversation and the conversation experience, as well as more generally how you are experiencing life in Miami-Dade County. In terms of how to complete that survey, you'll have two main options. One is to take it right there after your conversation on your smartphone. You as a host will be provided a very simple code that you can just text to a certain number, and then the survey link will be sent directly to your smartphone, and you can complete it right there. That is the quickest and easiest way to complete the survey, and so that is the number one way that we encourage you as host to encourage your participants to complete it. The other way is to collect email addresses for all of your participants, or ensure that they go to mymiamistory.org and register as a participant. And then in the days following the conversation, our planning team will email them directly a link to complete the survey. Because emails can get lost in the shuffle, and again, it'll be a day or so later when they receive the link, so the conversation may not be fresh and as top of mind. So that's kind of a secondary option that we steer hosts to. But again, still a good option as well. But our number one way that we encourage hosts to encourage their participants to take the survey is via the text to complete option. This survey is absolutely critical to the My Miami Story conversation experience because the Miami Foundation works with our research partner to synthesize those results into a report that we then share with major decision makers around town. And that includes elected officials, for-profit organization leaders, nonprofit leaders, civic leaders, individual residents and activists will have access to it. And that insight helps people really understand, again, the nuances behind these issues that we face as a community. And so the more people that take this survey, the more the results of the survey will reflect what is truly happening across Miami-Dade County, and it will truly reflect the experience of every single resident, no matter your racial or ethnic background, income level, what zip code you're from. The more people that are included and participate, the more robust the results will be. So please, please, please encourage everyone who participates in your conversation to complete the survey afterward. This day is certainly about the in-person conversation, but there is also a whole other conversation that happens online. And that's really driven by you, the hosts, and by participants, and by the entire community as they take to Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and share their stories using the My Miami Story hashtag. You can see the hashtag there on your screen. There's no year, there's no date, just hashtag My Miami Story. And folks will usually share anything from their conversation experience. They'll share what they talked about, what the experience was like, but they also will share their Miami story, which is how you came to Miami, why you stay in Miami, what is it that you care about in this community, and then ultimately what each of us can do to improve it. And so that online conversation is really important to the My Miami Story experience because it creates a shared opportunity for everyone to hear about what other folks in different parts of the community are experiencing in Miami. And so just as much as we're converging in person and we're having these robust gatherings and discussions, we also encourage you to tell your guests to take those conversations online and find other folks that care about the same issue, or share your Miami story and see who else may share that same story and where those connections may be. Because what we find in this experience is that there's a lot more that we share in common as a community than what divides us. We also will provide you plenty of inviting social media graphics in our host resources on mymiamistory.org. Again, that link will be up in the next couple of weeks, and so just keep an eye out for it, and we'll be sure to email all of the registered hosts when that link is up and live. As I've mentioned throughout this presentation, the My Miami Story support team is absolutely here for you. Consider us a concierge service. Anything that you may need, if you need help thinking through a location for your conversation, if you need help getting the link for the survey to work, or if you have questions about when you're going to receive your toolkit, please, please, please reach out to us anytime via phone or email, which is up on your screen, and we are happy to help. So that's about it. And again, we are so appreciative of you all for joining us as hosts in these My Miami Story conversations. Again, this is really a day of community reflection. And we hope that as we sit down and kind of think back on our experiences here, that we're able to better understand where we're going and again, what each of us need to do to help us get there. And so with that, I'm happy to open up the forum for any questions. Do we have any questions?
We'd also like to encourage that everyone that may possibly have a question to please feel free to type it in and share that information with us, and we will be happy to read out your question, and Matthew, I'm sure, will be able to provide an answer. And I do have one question that came in from a caller, person that's listening in. She's asking, is she required to discuss solely the issues about the 2020 election, or is it okay if she already has some other issues in mind, particularly with the arts, she said?
Absolutely. So the answer to that question is no, that you do not have to specifically discuss any of the issues that I covered in this presentation, or even the issues that will be included in the fact cards that will be sent to you. Again, this is your conversation as a host. And so you can discuss anything under the sun related to life in Miami that you would like. And we invite you to be creative and to think about what you care about, what your friends care about, what are you all talking about or concerned with in the city of Miami or in any of the municipalities or areas around Miami-Dade County. It is a completely open forum to discuss whatever you would like. Okay, so moving on to some other questions. Will volunteers get community hours? That's a great question. We certainly may have some volunteer opportunities here on the Miami Foundation's My Miami Story planning team. And so as a registered 501c3, we may have some opportunities to provide some volunteer hours, community hours for residents. I also encourage you to link up with any local nonprofits that you may volunteer with or may be familiar with and encourage them to host a conversation. And if you were instrumental in hosting that conversation and planning it and bringing all the details together, I'm sure that they would be more than willing to offer you community service hours. We have another question from Joe. How many toolkits per conversation? So every table should have one toolkit. So if you are planning anywhere between 6 to 12 people in your conversation, then one toolkit will absolutely suffice. If you are planning for more folks in your conversation, then we recommend that you have one toolkit for about every, again, 6 to 12 people within the conversation. And that just ensures that you have enough fact cards on hand, that you've got enough survey. We also will be sending out some paper surveys within your toolkit that folks can complete to just make sure that you have enough resources for everyone who is participating. Okay. Next question from Alexa. Will there be an itinerary provided in advance? We will absolutely share any open conversations on our Open Conversations website that will be live in the next couple of weeks. And when I say open conversations, again, those are conversations that anyone in the broader community is invited to attend. So so if you're interested in finding a conversation, again, we'll send out that link in the next couple of weeks, and you can feel free to find one that works for you.
Matt, there's also a question from the Ted Lucas Foundation indicating that they may have a videographer, and are they allowed to document this?
Sure, so that was tough to hear. The question was whether or not they're allowed to use, there was a question from a foundation asking whether or not they were allowed to use a videographer at their conversation. And if participants are willing to be video recorded, then you're absolutely welcome to have a videographer at your conversation. I received another question from Linda. Can we bring in partners for our stories, say Surfrider Foundation, for the conversation event? Yes, we encourage folks to think about other individuals and organizations and groups that should be brought to the table for your conversation. So if you're thinking about having a discussion around sea level rise or climate change, then maybe reach out to some local organizations who work around that issue and invite some of their staff members to attend. Or if you have friends that are particularly interested in that topic, then also invite them to be a part of it. But yes, the more diverse views and individuals at the table, the more dynamic the conversation will be. So we absolutely encourage that. We did get a question from David about when you can pick everything up within your toolkit. The toolkits will actually be mailed to all the registered hosts at no cost to you. All you have to do is go to mymiamistory.org and register as a host, and we'll get you in our system. You'll receive a confirmation email within the next couple of days, and that will ensure that you receive your toolkit before your conversation.
Here's another request. Will there be an itinerary provided in advance?
Yes, that itinerary will be on our Open Conversations platform, which we can share that link with all the registered hosts again in the next couple of weeks as the plans for conversations become a bit more solidified. So if there are no other questions, then we are happy to wrap it up, but I think I'm getting a notification that there's one more.
Yes, are walk-ins allowed, or do they have to register as a guest on My Miami Story?
Yes, walk-ins are allowed, and we absolutely encourage, anyone who happens upon your conversation, if you feel comfortable with them joining, you're more than welcome to invite them to do so. We do just ask that if any of your guests have not gone to mymiamistory.org and signed up as a participant and registered with all their information, then we just ask that you collect their information of whoever's actually physically at the conversation on the sign-in sheet that will be provided in your toolkit, and then get that sign-in sheet back to us. All those instructions are included in your toolkit in terms of how to send it back. We just ask you to take a quick picture on your telephone, on your cell phone, and then email it to mymiamistory@miamifoundation.org. But again, all of these details will be in your toolkit, so it will be super clear for folks to understand.
We do have one more question. Someone asks, can we make our own Eventbrite for registration?
Yes, absolutely. If you are managing your own RSVPs for your conversation, by all means, feel free to use Eventbrite. That will actually make it much easier for you to provide those emails of your participants back to the foundation to ensure that we're able to push them a survey. And you can also send them the survey link directly after the conversation if you would like as well. And the real purpose behind inviting participants to register, and I'm talking a lot about tracking emails and sending information back to us, that really is to ensure that we capture every single person participating in the conversation and we're able to provide them a survey. Last year, more than 4,000 people participated in this initiative across the county. And so if 4,000 people take a survey, imagine the understanding that we would have about life in this community and what we need to do to improve it. So the more all of our wonderful registered hosts like you all help us with getting emails and signing folks up and encouraging folks to take the survey, even after your conversation, reminding them to complete the survey at the link, to take the 10 to 15 minutes to do that, the more everyone helps with sharing that message, the more robust and meaningful the results of this day will be. And so with that, we are again so thankful that you have joined us as a host for the 2019 Miami Story Day of Conversations. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. All of our contact information and all of the information, including this recorded webinar, will be available at mymiamistory.org. So thank you all for joining us and enjoy the rest of your day.